y'all doing today? Wonderful day out there, a little bit wet, but the Lord knows we need it. Some more of it. My creek's already almost quit running, so this little bit of rain put it back to running again. So our birthdays and anniversaries, we have gee whiz, Dave J. John. That's it. That's the old man, Dave. Dave Kirby and Landon Daniels. He's not here, so let's sing happy birthday to Dave then. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you. How old will you be this week, Dave? How old will you be? 39. 39? Yeah. 67. And our anniversaries this week's Jim and Betty Rogers, and they're not here. So. What do I have here? A cranky old man invested in one of those new hearing aids that are almost invisible. A few days later, he returned to the store to express his delight. "I'll bet your family likes it too," said the salesman. "Oh, they don't know I've got it," said the old fellow. "And am I having a ball? In the past week, I've changed my wheel 3 times. Charlie, if you want to open up the service with a word of prayer.
Father, we're so thankful, Lord, for the privilege of prayer, Lord. We come to you with thankful hearts this morning, Lord. Thank you for your love. We love you this morning, Lord. Father, we just pray right now, Lord, for the Sunday School hour. Pray that you'll be in the midst of us, Lord. We pray for Brother Johnny as he leads, Lord. Father, as we come to the altar after service, Lord, we pray that you'll bless it also. Father, we're not fail to praise you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us already this day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Perfect in weakness. God's idea of strength and man's idea of strength are opposite one another. The Lord told Paul, "My strength is made perfect in weakness." Having learned this lesson, Paul could then say, "When I am weak, then I am strong." A paradox? Not really. Only when Paul admitted his own weakness and was willing to get out of the way could God take over and work. If we try to do God's will in our own strength, then we can take the credit for whatever gets accomplished. But that isn't God's way. When we let his strength work through us, then he alone will get the glory, and that is as it should be. In the Old Testament, God repeatedly told the leaders of Israel to reduce the size of their armies, or he announced in advance how their victory would be won. Why? So they would place their trust in him and not in their own strength. As someone has said, God's work done in God's way will never lack for God's provision. Let's stand and do our pledges at this time. I pledge allegiance to the Bible, God's holy word. I will make it a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I will hide its words in my heart that I might not sin against God. Amen. To the Christian flag. I pledge allegiance to the Christian flag, to the Savior, for whose kingdom it stands, one Savior, crucified, risen, and coming again with life and liberty to all who believe. Amen. The American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts. We forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Any announcements today? Say we're not going to do the nursing home? Or?
Derek, can you take that nursing home? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Susie can't be there, and I probably won't be either. Okay. My back is problem. Yes.
So we will have okay. All who want to be there.
I plan on being preaching it anyway.
Yeah. Right. So all who can just attend the nursing home then at 2:30. Anything else? No other announcements? Teacher, you can take a class. And a kid won here today, is there? Well, Andrew, where's he at? Over there he is. But he ain't got no pictures here this morning.
Brother Gary Amber, you must help me.
This morning, we thank you, Father, for keeping us safe tonight. All you ask for bless the service. Let your Father, give those hearts we need, Lord, for that those like me, Father, have you way in our left. We just pray this, Lord, for we know.
Amen. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if it's the rain or what it is, but I've been hurting since it started raining, so I'm assuming we'll lay the blame on the rain. Anyhow, still good to be alive, to be saved, on our way to heaven, and to know that our name is written in the book of life. Would ask you to pray down through the day that there's a whole busload of them from Meg's going down to Kings Island. Just pray they get back safe tonight. They're supposed to be back home around somewhere around 8:30 or something like that to the high school. So haven't heard of any tragedy as far as at any of the proms last night, wrecks or whatever. I pray that we don't, right? It's always one of my concerns, whether it's my child at a prom or not, is God bring them all home safe. And anyhow, let's get into our Sunday school lesson this morning. And Genesis chapter 34, right? How would we title today's lesson? Remember, if we had the books, it would always give us some kind of heading to it. I think today we'd probably have to look at it and say, we got even, or getting even, because we find that the sons of Jacob take out vengeance themselves upon the sons of Haman here, or ever how you say his name. And it's never good that we take vengeance into our own hands. I want to throw that out there. It's God's job. Does that mean that we are to go on as if nothing ever happened? Absolutely not. But vengeance belongs to God. And how do I know that? Is actually His words spoken from His lips or His mouth, that vengeance belongs to Him. So let's get in to this lesson today. Someone, if you would, read the first 5 verses.
Dinah, the daughter of Leah, she bare unto Jacob, went out to seek the daughters of the land. And Puritan, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country Soar, who took her and laid with her and defiled her. And his soul cleaved to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and of the damsel, and he spake tidings to the damsel. And Shechem spake to his father Hamor, saying, Get thee the damsels to wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, the daughter of now his son is established here, and took Elisha until his son.
All right, so why didn't Jacob say something about this? Why did he hold his peace? First, I think we have to understand, how old do you think Jacob is at this time? Number one, he's getting older. I mean, by now he's got, remember, he's probably, I would say, somewhere 60s. So as he's here and he settles in the land, Shechem, I think is actually how you would say the young man's name, got the cart before the horse. Had he probably approached Jacob about marrying this girl before he went into her or forced himself upon her, and that's what he did. He raped her. But the scripture here tells us that he loved her. He was just amazed, mesmerized at her beauty. Now remember, he has 12 sons. How many daughters did he have? Just this one. And he holds his peace. He doesn't say anything. Not only is he, like I said, probably, around 60 years old, maybe 70. You got to remember, where's the boys at? They're out in the field with the cattle. So he's outnumbered. If he goes down to say something, how many knows you don't go into somebody's house without going down with the reinforcements, right? So he holds his peace. Imagine the emotional effect that this has on the daughter. Not only has she been defiled, and we don't know how much time lapsed from the time that she was defiled or raped, if you'll have it, and that dad just sat there. Imagine what's going through her mind. Why isn't my dad doing something about this? Why didn't he send to get the boys? I'm sure he had servants, and that's, you know what I mean? But he held his peace until they came in at the normal time. All right, let's go on to verse 6. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him, and the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not so to be done. Now again, the crime was that he raped her. Had he went to Jacob and married her, there was no law forbidding them to marry, by the way, someone else right now. The law has not been given that they only marry someone that is of the Jewish origin. That law hadn't come. So as he's here, the boys somehow get wind of what's going on. They come in, they're madder than a wet hen. So what do you do when what's the best thing to do when you get angry? Is that what we do?
They say count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can do whatever you want, but honestly, the best thing is to back off a little bit and let your heels cool down, as the old saying, because what happens when you don't?
When Mike said that time, I told him, go sit on couch, I'm going to whip you in a second. And the moment it took the matter, I got back. Time to do it now, so when you're done my thing, you know what I mean? But I said, I tried to get my mind settled, but I got thinking too much again, and I thought, nah, that ain't working.
But let's say someone around you has done something. What should you do? Because here's what happens when someone offends you, and that's what's happened. They're offended in what was happened and what had taken place. And when someone does something like that to you and you get angry, what happens is your mouth begins to fly open and you begin to speak way faster than you begin to think. And you're always going to say something that you're going to end up regretting. 99 times out of 100, you're going to end up saying something that you end up regretting later. I wish, had I took some time to think about it, you wouldn't have done that. Now, these boys are mad, but they don't speak up. They begin to devise a plan. They begin to plot against them. Sometimes when this happens and you're by yourself, you can think things out, you can think things through, and you can get past it. But when you've got 12 brothers that are, if you have the words, feeding off of one another's anger on how they're going to get even, imagine the conversation that's going on between these 12 brethren. Because here's the thing. If you come into the room and we start talking about something that upsets me, that's upset you, the longer we talk about it, the madder I'm going to get. I can be perfectly calm and you can come in mad and end up, because you're upset, all of a sudden I'm upset. And the more we talk about it, the madder you get and the madder I get. You know what you have to do? You've got to change the subject. You've got to get away from it in order to calm down. I promise you, between these 12 brethren, somebody is stirring the pot. How are we going to fix this? Now remember, they're 12 brethren, Dad 13. How many servants they had, we don't know. They're in a strange land. They're in the land of the Hittites. And I want you to understand something. They are completely outnumbered. Had they tried to take justice in their own hands, they'd all died. The whole family would have been destroyed. Am I right? I realize the Bible says 1 of you shall chase 100, 10 of you shall chase 1,000. I realize the Bible says all this thing. That ain't been said yet here, okay? I mean, how many? I mean, Brad's a big boy. Brad, can you whip 10 men? So you realize there's 12. So if there's 1,200 of them or 1,000 of them or even 100 against 12, the odds are not very good. And I'm telling you, when you're taking vengeance in your hands, it ain't never good. And that's what they're plotting to do, is to get even. Notice not only did they defile the daughter, they defiled the whole land and wrought folly in Israel. Notice that. We could point at different places in this country that I could, 4 real fast, that are really influential on this country, on the things of how that it have acted and how that it's brought this country down, is Las Vegas, Hollywood, New York City, right? There's 3. Washington, D.C., there's 4. New Orleans would be 5. I mean, how they act have tried to teach us that. The other one really that I want to mention was San Francisco, California. And you can, I'm not saying there's not good places in California, but those things that go on in, I mean, from some of the pictures I've seen, California would be a good place to visit, but I sure wouldn't want to live there because of a lot of the things that I've heard. Does that mean that California is bad? No. I'm sure there's good things goes on in Las Vegas. I know there's good things that goes on in New York. I mean, I've been up there. If you've ever been to New York and went through that Central Park, man, it's beautiful. Susie got to go through it. It's a beautiful place. But what goes on in that thing and how that they conduct their lives brings down a society today. Look at just what our Supreme Court and how they have affected America in by not upholding laws, but by making them. All right? So we have to realize that our decisions not only affect us, and that's, again, why I hear people all the time, it's my life. I'm not bothering anybody. That's not true. Your life is your life, but it affects others that are around you that care for you today. So we have to, when the Bible said be careful for one another's happiness, I think this is one of the things it's talking about. All right. His dad, that's exactly right. His dad is the king, and all the army is behind this boy. Again, they're completely outnumbered. You don't go into somebody else's house and just lay out a bunch of demands unless you're able to you're stronger than they are, because they're not going to give in. So, and Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give him or him to wife. Now, had, again, what not happened earlier, and he came to him with this request, if you'll have it, before that took place, before he forced himself on her, I promise you, it probably would have been a nice wedding. They would have been at peace. If this conversation that we're getting ready to read about here and what's going on between the two dads and these boys, had it taken place, there was ways that you could become part of the nation of Israel without being born physically into the family. And that's really what they tell them on down in here. Let's go on before I spoil it. And make ye marriages with us, and give us your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us in the land, shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, get your possessions therein. And Shechem said unto his father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, that ye may, and what ye shall say unto me, I will give. Hey man, I love this girl. Anything you ask of me, just please give her to me. I'll pay whatever you require.
So do you think his son actually told his father what he'd done to her? Or did he just say, I want her, you ask for her? Do you think he knew his dad?
Well, honestly, I don't think in that land at that time, I don't think they thought anything about that. Remember who we're talking about. We're talking about pagan people. Godless people. And if they have gods, it's not the God, all right? These people are a cursed people. Why would God curse somebody? There's sin. So we have to look at it and whether he knew whether or not he had forced himself on this young lady or not, We really don't know. Only thing we know is he comes in to Dad and said, Dad, I found her. I found the girl that I want to marry. And this is, Jacob's daughter, Dinah. I love her with all of my heart. And you've got to, whatever it takes, Dad, I want you to get her. And remember who he's speaking to. He's speaking to the king of the land. Which one of you is going to deny the king? Notice the phrase, whatever you tell me, whatever you require of me, I'll get it. I'll do it. That's what this young man said. Again, he had all the best intentions in the world. He just went about it the wrong way. He got the cart before the horse. No doubt Dinah probably even said, listen, don't do this now. Talk to Dad. I don't know the whole conversation, but I know in other places, I know later on when one of David's sons raped his half-sister, if you'll have it, that's what she said, that, don't do this. If you ask my father for my hand in marriage, he'll not withhold it. Don't do it this way. How many knows it's not always what you do, it's how you do it that's wrong. All right.
Jacob, he had to go get his wife Rachel, and this is daughter of Leah.
Well, now let's think about this, all right? When Isaac needed a wife, Abraham sent the servant back down there, and they welcomed right into the household, and they got the servant, and here they came out, or they got Rachel, and here they came out with Rachel. Rebecca, I'm sorry, I got my R's mixed up. And then when Rebecca and Isaac send him back there, when Jacob leaves, he leaves on bad terms. So do you want to send back down there and get 12 wives or a prince for your... remember how you came out. There's no going back to that land, folks. Because you left bad. Remember? They set a pillar of stones up. Last time he saw Laban, they set a pillar of stones up and said, listen, I won't go past this point, because if I do, I'm in trouble with God, and if you come past this place, amen, you're in trouble with God. You stay over there and mind your business. So that's why you can't send back there and get wives and son-in-laws anymore if you have it. The line has been drawn. The boundary is there. You can't go back. There are things in our life that we need to set up boundaries that we can't go back to there because of the heartache that it's already brought. The price, the lessons that we've already learned. That's the thing. Sometimes we go through things in life and don't learn lessons that we should have. We got to go through them 2 or 3 times. We got the school of hard knocks, is that right? Because we're hard-headed, we just don't get it. Finally, it'll sink into us, catch up to us. You know when it does? Years later. We realize what we should have done then. And we all know there's things like that in our life. I don't know, where did I get them glasses tangled up like that? I'm good. All right. Verse 13. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully, and said, because he hath defiled Dinah, their sister. Now, there's a comma there. This is why they answered deceitfully, is because he had defiled Dinah. That's what we have to understand about that verse. They're plotting. All right? Notice the plot now. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. But in this will we be content with you, if you will be as we are, that every male of you be circumcised. Oh my. Every man in the kingdom Somebody said, ouch. No, it's not just ouch. You're talking about a huge request. It's not just that the Father and the Son, the whole country, every male, if you want to come into our family, you've got to be circumcised. This is the sign that God give us to separate us. And if we take you come in, you'll defile us. So you've got to become one of us. Sounds good, doesn't it? I'm going to tell you what, that's a high price to pay for some low living. I mean, you're talking about love. You're talking about loyalty. How many of you men, if you're out there in the kingdom and the prince is just in love with this so strange girl over here, and you're not going to benefit anything except it's going to make him happy for you to suffer all through all this. How many wants to sign up for something like that? Ain't happening. That's exactly right. Just ain't going to happen. Oh, my. Then we will give unto you our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters unto us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. Boy, they make it sound good, don't they? And we will become one people. And this could have honestly happened had it been done in the integrity of the heart. But they had a plan. How many know some people make things sound really, really, really good when all the while they got something up their sleeve? Huh? And it ain't their arms. That's exactly right. They got, because there's not one person in here that in your life you've not been used. Except maybe Andrew. Andrew's like, they use me as a slave all the time. You have people that you think are your friends that will do, they'll do anything for you is what they tell you. As long as their benefit. When it comes time for them to give instead of receive, they run, they hide, they talk about you. You know what? That's life. I mean, sometimes it's church people. And most of the time it's your own family that do things like that to, unfortunately, sometimes it's what you think it's your closest friends. That's why we're not to put our confidence in man, but rather God, that never fails. Is there anybody in here that God has honestly failed? I realize we all go through struggles in life, but God's there. Even when we think He's not, He's there. He's omnipresent. Verse 17. But if you will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, we will take our daughter and we will be gone. Oh my. You know what they're saying? There's no other way. If you don't want to do this, we're done. The conversation's over with. We'll just pack up our bags and we'll move right on down the road. But if he really wants to start Dinah, then that's what you're going to have to do. Huh? Pretty hard demands, isn't it? And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. So the king and the prince are all for this. Let's remember, we're not talking about just the king and prince. We're talking about the whole country has got to go through this act of a rite of circumcision. And the king and the prince, they're good. And the young men deferred not to do this thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that. And they deferred not. All the young men, they deferred not to do this thing. They were eager because he loved her. Notice the respect. This young man, they're saying, is the most honorable man in the county, if you'll have it. In the city. Remember, he just defiled Dinah. Just raped Dinah against her will. So, what'd you say, Judy? They're heathens. I mean, they're a godless people. You can't expect good things out of godless people. I'm not saying there's not some good people out there, but the cream will rise to the top, as the old saying. It's going to come out. So and the Haman and Shechem and his son came into the gate of the city and communed with the men of the city, saying, These men are peaceable with us. Therefore let them dwell in the land and trade therein for the land. Behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters for us wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent for us unto dwell with us, that we be one people, if every male among us be circumcised as they are circumcised. Listen now. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? There's their there's the plan. You know, we're just going to be one big happy partridge family now. And we're going to sing, and we're going to hymn, and hold hands, and dance around in circles, and just make merry. And we're all going to be richer, be better off in the end, what we are now. That's the story that the world wants you to believe. But it's not so in the world. Life's a party. I mean, how long have we been hearing that phrase? Life's just a party, man. Just live it up. Go for the gusto. Remember that commercial? That beer commercial? Go for the gusto. What's Budweiser's now? Or Miller? Living the high life. All these different things. I wonder. You remember what I do for a living? I'm a trash man. Do you know how many beer bottles and beer cans I pick up a week? There are houses that have very little trash except beer bottles and beer cans. I'm like, what a miserable life you must be living. There's no high life in that, folks. None. And if you that have been there and done that, you know I'm telling the truth. There's no high life there in that. There is pleasure in sin for a season. I'm not trying to say that there's not pleasure in sin for a season. Boy, it just don't last long. Life will get a hold of you, right? Verse 24. Or finish at verse 23. Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. I mean, they just got this one little request. One little thing. And we'll have all that they have. We'll just be... Notice verse 24. And unto Haman and to Shechem his son hearkened all, and went out into the gate of the city, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of the city. And it came to pass on the third day that when there were sore, that the two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came up on the city boldly and slew, notice this next word, How many, Gary? All the men. They weren't able to defend themselves. They couldn't move. They couldn't run. They couldn't fight. They were sore, so sore they couldn't walk. My. Did they do this out of love or out of anger? Out of anger. That's exactly right. They did it because they claimed that they were defending the honor. You know, they had their reasons. They had their excuse on why they did that to excuse their actions today. But I want you to understand something. There was no excuse. God was big enough to handle that. If God wanted that nation destroyed because of that, God could have done that. What God could do in a situation for you and I, He can't do if you and I get ahead of Him. For God to work in our life, He has to go in front of us, not behind us, and clean up the mess. He's the way maker, not the mess cleaner. Somebody ought to write that down. I ain't never heard that before. That's a good saying. He's the way maker. He's not the janitor coming around, but He's not the mop-up man. Remember the movie Bruce Almighty? His Morgan Freeman playing God in it. You know, why is it they always portray God as a black man? Most movies, and you know that he's played 2 or 3 times. He's played God like that. But anyhow, as he comes in and he's got this coveralls on and he's got this mop and he's just mopping the whole floor. And then he talks about fixing the world, and how do they fix the world at the end of the thing? They're mopping the floor and said it's good, you know, all that. God's not the cleanup man, folks. God will fix problems, but it's not His job to come behind us. It's His job. He's our leader, not us. As many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are called the sons of God. He didn't say as many as God follows. As many as are led by the Spirit, they are called the sons of God. All right. And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. They knew he couldn't do anything else. I mean, they let her go up there because he couldn't touch her. Remember, he just got cut. Then the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. Well, they owe us. How many times have you heard that? They owe me now. I'll get even. I'll get right. I owe them one. You understand what I'm saying? Because if the problem is that you're going to kill this young man because of what he done, why do you got to kill the whole city? Not only why is it that you've got to kill every male in the city, why is it that you've got to take everything that they have now as a reward, if you'll have it, for vindicating your sister? Their reasons are just not adding up to them doing what they're doing. Do they add up to y'all? They're totally wrong in how they handle this. I know if God be for us, who can be against us? I know they won the battle, but they handle it all wrong. Because now, listen to the reply of their father. And that's another thing too, is why didn't Jacob come in and sit down with these boys and say, no, all right, boys, we're going to have to do something here. Why did he just let them go? Think about it. Did he do anything? I realize today we don't know the whole story because we are not sitting in Jacob's house. I do realize that. But I don't think he did anything to try to stop them. I think he knew their heart. Remember, he knew who their daddy was. He knew what a crook he could be back in the day. He knew what kind of bloodline these boys had. I realize that God has changed him. God ain't changed these boys yet. All right? They took their sheep and their oxen and their asses, which is in the city, which was in the field, all that there were, and all their wealth and all their little ones, and they took their wives. They captive and spoiled even all that was in the house. 2 men. That's, again, 2 men did all this. And Jacob said to Simeon and to Levi, ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, should he deal with our sister as with a harlot? Again, they're laying I'm not saying they shouldn't have done something, but Jacob said, now you've got me in trouble with everybody around here. You've made us look bad, boys. That's what he's telling them. They were, if not worse. I mean, they killed all the men. Now they've taken everything. They took their wives. They took their children. Did you catch that? What's good about that? 2 men. I want you to look at this now. 2 of the men went in and did that. The other 9 followed them and cleaned up all the spoil. Why did 2 and 9 makes how many? Why would I say 11? Benjamin is not born yet. All right? Because when Benjamin's born, I think Benjamin's born, if I remember right, in the next chapter or the chapter after that, but I think it's the next chapter, Benjamin's born and Rachel dies. Joseph is probably, probably 10, 12 years old, so he's probably not in on that. So notice who's causing the problem. It's Leah's crew. That's where the 2 oldest ones come from that did this, Simeon and Levi. They are Leah's children. The Bible plainly told us that. But not only it's the Leah's children, it's the handmaiden's children. What does that tell me? All this was brought on. Even Dinah. I'm not saying that we're not, they didn't, that through all that Jacob wasn't blessed to have all these children. What I'm saying is because of the deceitfulness that brought in the second wife, which would be Leah. She was not the first wife. Rachel was the first wife. That's the one he loved. Supposed to have been the first wife, right? The 2 handmaidens. I mean, that was never, because Jacob got in, jumped in ahead of time, Jacob and Rachel and Leah, they all jumped in ahead of time and did things that they shouldn't do. How many knows you when you reap wild oats or sow wild oats, you reap wild oats? That's what's going on in this chapter today, folks. Remember, God's plan was for one husband to live with one wife. And that's what's going on. He's got 2 wives. Actually, he's got 4 wives. He calls the other 2 concubines or handmaidens, whatever. But he took them unto wife. So now they come in here and they destroy a whole city. We can't. Every city had a different king back then, all right? Everywhere there was a city, they had their own leader, king, ruler, whatever you wanted to call him. They've come in, they've taken over this city. They've taken the spoil. They've destroyed all the men. I worry. I worry as to what Jacob has actually taught them about God. Don't you? I worry about our country. I realize that sometimes our police officers shoot somebody that's undeserving. But there's sure been a lot of them that ask for it. And in the name of peace, towns have been destroyed. The riots, the looting, I mean, I worry about this country in that the lessons that we have learned and that statues have been set up in honor of great men that fought bravely, and all of a sudden we want to get rid of all of that history because it offends somebody. It's no longer about what's best for this country. It's about what's best for me. We live in a selfish generation of people today, folks. Why is it? Because we have no love for the brethren. We claim we do, but we don't. We need to make sure that you and I spread that good news, spread that example of love. Remember, do unto others as you've had them do unto you. Not do unto others before they do unto you. And that's the way most people are living today. Do unto others before they can do unto you. With people that are addicted to drugs with the way they are, and I'm not trying to slander anybody. Them things get a hold of you. It just takes one time and they got a hold of you. That pornography, the way it's going, abortion that's in this country. North Dakota just passed a law that it's called the heartbeat law. That as soon as a baby's heartbeat is detected, you no longer can abort it. Well, that baby has a detectable heartbeat before you know you're pregnant. So, what I'm afraid of is our Supreme Court's going to say that that's not legal. You can't pass that kind of law. When I know and you know that it's true, that the life of every child is precious. Regardless of how it got formed, that doesn't mean the child is bad. Regardless of whether it's deformed, that doesn't mean some of the most precious children I've seen in this world have disabilities. Let's make sure that we spread the good news of the gospel. Make sure that if we are wronged, because these two wrongs did not make things right. There's a right way to handle things and a wrong way to handle things, all right? Let's take a break. We'll come back for worship.